Hi all, I'm Bernard Featherman from Business Today, and we want to welcome you again to our program. We have a special treat today. Bill Leffler is with Moneywatch, and what they do is they're certified financial planners, but a little different than what you've heard. Bill, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and have done in the past?
Right. I'm with, as you mentioned, with Moneywatch.
Right.
We are a fee-only financial planning firm. In other words, we don't get a commission on anything we recommend. So there's no conflict of interest, which I think is important. There are three ways that financial planners get paid. One is fee-only, which is what we are. One is fee-based, so that there's some fee, but there's some
charge,
well, right? Some commission, and then there's the commission-based. So there's a conflict of interest within the other two, because the commission is part of what the financial planner receives as income.
Right.
With us, we don't get any commission, so there's no conflict of interest on something that we have to push for our clients to purchase. And I think that's an important distinction that needs to be made. There's an article in this morning's Press Herald on the editorial page about this sort of thing, and it's well taken, and I would recommend it to people. It's published by, it's printed, authored by somebody with AARP. Right.
Well, let me ask you something. Could you give our folks here a little bit of a background on what you've been doing? And
yes,
how long you've sold?
No, don't sell anything.
As advisor.
Right, as an advisor. I've been with Moneywatch now for 29 years.
Right.
So that's a while. We're a peculiar company in that our headquarters is in Lexington, Kentucky.
Oh.
We have 4 people in that office.
Right.
And my associate, who makes most of the decisions as to what the investments will be, lives in Naples, Florida.
Oh, boy.
It's too hot there in the summer, so he has a home in Lexington as well. And I live here in Kennebunkport.
Well, you both have good weather.
Oh, my goodness. But today, with phones and faxes and computers, it really doesn't make much difference.
Well, you're a vice president, aren't you,
correct.
Of the firm?
It doesn't make much difference where I call you from.
Right.
And most of my clients have been clients for many, many years. And so I'm able to use, if you will, a shorthand that when I talk about something, they know immediately what I'm talking about because we've been talking about it for years.
Well, give me an idea, an example of someone who comes to you and how you take care of them.
Oh, goodness. Let me give you one of my best.
Okay, that's good enough.
This is a couple, and I would suspect they're in their upper 50s today,
right,
who came to us when, over 25 years ago. And when we were preparing their plan and looking at the numbers they gave us, the chap who was doing the plan said to me, "There's something wrong here. All their numbers are coming up negative." I said, "Well, let me check." I went to them and I said, "We have this problem." And so I told him. He said, "Well, that's why we came to you. We need assistance." And so they have been clients for well over 25 years, as I say. He's now worth over $3 million.
Wow, that's pretty
which
good.
Is successful. We send out a net worth statement every month to every client. So the client knows exactly where he is in his investment portfolio as well as everything else. This is one of the things that, as I mentioned to you earlier, Bernie Madoff's supposedly sophisticated clients didn't understand. Our clients get a statement from us showing their net worth, but they also get a statement from TD Ameritrade, which is the brokerage firm we use,
right,
showing them what is in each one of their accounts and what has occurred within that past month, so that they have a double check on things, and there's no possibility of any hanky-pank.
Well, I would say that it's difficult for a person today who's a working person that has a job, say, for $50,000 to $60,000 a year, to save any real money, because if he has a family, by the time they're grown and they have to go to college, he has to remortgage his home, and then he has to start building again for money in his savings for retirement.
All right, well, let me throw you another one then. To me, money is never primary. Money is secondary. And the reason I say that is that you know and I know, we all know, if we want to do something, somehow we find the money. And if we don't want to do something, somehow we can't find the money. So when people talk to me money first, my response is shut up, I don't want to hear it. I want to hear what your priorities are. Then we can talk about money.
That's good thinking, by the way.
And it puts the focus where it needs to be. What are your priorities? Okay, now you tell me the priorities, and let's see how we can fund them. And that then takes the emphasis, the focus off money and puts it on the priorities. And you'll say, okay, now let me see what I can do to tinker with my cash flow, what I'm spending my money on. Do I really need this, or can I do without it and begin to build my retirement funding, or begin to build my college funding, or whatever the nest egg may be?
One thing I want to ask you, in lieu of all of this, how do we get younger people to start in planning for their future? It's very difficult, I would assume.
It is extremely difficult because our society doesn't think in those terms.
That's an interesting statement.
I live in Kennebunkport.
Right.
We have no community-wide program for older citizens. When I look at the demographics of Kennebunkport, we have a lot of folks who are of retirement age or older.
Right.
We have nothing for these people except a town nurse who knows something about some things. But I've discovered one of them that she doesn't know what it's all about at all.
That's very interesting. Well, what do you recommend then?
Just a week ago, I went to the selectmen's meeting and recommended they establish a committee to look into these things. And I've got a letter coming out in the Coast Star shortly, I hope, and an article in the Kennebunk Post on this. And I'm presenting a proposal to the town manager today, and we'll see where we go. Because I think this is totally overlooked. And I'm on the board of No Place Like Home, a new organization whose purpose is to help older folks remain in their homes for as long as possible.
That's very interesting.
That takes planning. And it's the same sort of thing with financial planning. It takes planning. You can't get there. And so with a younger person, as you ask, how do you get them interested? You make them uncomfortable.
I guess that most of them are uncomfortable today because they're looking for jobs, or
but if they have a job,
isn't there.
If they have a job, do you have a 401k? Do you have a 403b? If you do, are you using it? If you're not using it, why not?
That's a good point.
Why not?
Really
It's to your advantage. You can reduce your income tax because it says less take-home pay.
Explain what a 401 is for those people out there.
401k is found in a for-profit business,
right,
in which the business has established a retirement program, to which the employees can contribute pre-tax money so that it reduces their taxable income. And in many of these firms, the company will add money to it. If you put in 5%, they may put in 3%, so that you get
some of them even put in more.
Oh, yes. Then, so that it's really to the advantage. And a 403b is the same sort of thing, except it's for a nonprofit, a university, a hospital, something of that general nature. But even then, people, I see, I know a young man, not so young man, he's in his 50s, and he showed me where he was putting the money. He's headed toward retirement. He shouldn't be 80% in equities at his age, because if the stock market takes a slight nosedive,
it will take a nosedive eventually.
He will be at a distinct advantage. Because the stocks go this way. Right. Bonds go this way, and bonds give you the income that you want.
If you hold out long enough,
Well,
you end up
and
with.
it depends on what you're invested in that category. As I mentioned, we have we do utilize what's known as a closed-end bond fund. It has a limited number of shares that pays over 6%, and it pays on a monthly basis, so that our clients get income into their accounts every month. And every 2 or 3 months, there's a sufficient amount of cash in the account that we have to go back in and say, okay, what are we going to purchase with that account, with that cash? Because cash doesn't pay very much today. Look at the interest you get on your checking account.
I bet you get 0.25.
Exactly. Whereas, well, if you can get more, that's beneficial.
Even on money markets today, they're bringing in up to 1%.
Right.
For a year.
Which is why we don't want to keep more than $1,000 in cash in anyone's account. And when it accumulates to that amount, we go back in and we say, okay, where should it be invested? And we look at the asset allocation model. The asset allocation model is how much percentage should be in equities, how much should be in income. And then within each of those categories, what kind of income, what kind of equities, so that there's as much diversification.
Does inflation hurt this type of income? Because I know we're going to be heading now for inflation. You go out and you buy eggs for $1.50 a year ago. Now they're $2.75 to $3 a dozen.
So go out and buy some gasoline and you'll be happier.
Oh, well, that's less.
Yes.
But food has gone up. Meats in the grocery store have gone up 6-7%.
That's part of your cash flow question that you have to say. How much do I spend per month, for instance?
So you really have to break down
what
you're doing as far as income on food, what your mortgage is, if you have payables on the utilities, and there are other things that you have to spend.
Right. I have a client who's an engineer who does this meticulously. I get a printout from him every month, item by item by item. And he's in a situation where he was working for a firm that downsized and he's now unemployed, so that this is even more important to him. But there are all kinds of things. This is where we go back and ask, what are your priorities?
It's true. They really have to think out what's important to them, their future, and what they're going to spend their money for.
Let me make another comparison for you. We're both up in the 80s. And when we were first married, to set up an apartment, my recollections, I went out and bought a toaster. The apartment that I rented had all of the other appliances that I needed that were necessary at that time. Right. We inherited a television from my parents. It wasn't necessary initially, but we inherited it subsequently. Oh, and I had an electric typewriter. Look at what is necessary as young folks consider setting up a housekeeping today, and what it costs them month by month to maintain the services. I am astounded at looking at the television ads, at only so and such per month.
But you have also telephone as well as computer, and things are changing so dramatically. What's happened 5 years ago are the dark ages today, as far as changeovers.
And so all of this needs to be properly planned so that the things that will be available 20 years hence for a person who's 35 today and he's 55 20 years hence may be totally different from what we know today. But then what's it going to cost, and how is he going to fund it? And is it a necessity?
Well, that's a big problem. I agree with you, Bill. People are facing something now. In the next 5 years, they will have cards out where you can go into a grocery store and it has a little symbol in there that will pick up the cost of every item you want to purchase as you put it in the...
So you know exactly what you're spending.
As you go out, you won't see a cashier. Now, what's going to happen when we lose 15 to 20% of the jobs, even in banks today, what they're doing for the future, and I understand they're mostly going in for mobile type of deposits, and they'll eliminate most of the tellers. So those people have to find jobs, and they aren't going to be available because we even have automation today that replaces humans in doing things.
I have a client who works for an insurance company, and one of his concerns today is the Google driverless car. And the question is, how does this insurance company go about in insuring a driverless car?
I wouldn't ride a driverless car because I don't have the confidence that it's going to get me down the street without hitting something.
Well, that's what he's having to work on, because we were with him a couple of weeks ago, and he's telling me about this. And what if the people in the driverless car are so relaxed about the driverless car, they're watching the television screen, and suddenly an emergency of some sort comes up. Whose responsibility is it to avoid the emergency? The driverless car or the people who are inside of it?
Well, that's true. What we're facing today, we have to plan what we're going to do in the future.
Again, that's why financial planning. And there's, for instance, when we were young, people got married mostly in their 20s. They had children in their 20s, maybe into their 30s. Today we find people who don't get married until they're in their mid-30s to 40s.
That's true.
And then they have children, so that when their children are old enough to be headed for college, they're headed for retirement. So they get a double whammy: college funding, retirement funding. That's a significant concern in financial planning.
Well, how do we help the people who are making a living, but they're not making that much income? Say they're making $30,000 or $35,000 a year. How can they plan ahead to save anything? What do they have to do to do that?
It's a major challenge. This is why budgeting is so important. This is why setting priorities is so important. And we tend not to focus on doing those things.
It's a good point.
And we suffer as a result.
Well, I think today what's happened with a lot of people, they're concerned about just making their expenses. We've just gone through a terrible time the last 6 years, and it's like a depression.
Oh, yes.
They call it a recession.
Arose by any other name.
And people are really having problems with something like that.
Oh, my goodness, yes. And the people who are unemployed don't choose to be unemployed, but you listen to the politicians, and they're not quite aware of all of that.
We have good people here in Maine.
We do.
They're hardworking people. They want to find jobs if they don't have them. You have very few people on unemployment, but because there are no jobs available now, they do find difficulty. What happens for them to set up a planning basis in the future if they're unemployed right now?
It becomes extremely difficult. And that's why Social Security is so crucial, because it is the security net that many people absolutely must have. As I mentioned earlier, I'm working on the problems for senior citizens in Kennebunkport. And we have to be able to provide services for people on limited incomes.
That's important. I agree with you very much.
Kennebunkport is not organized in any fashion currently to do that.
Well, we have the same thing in Biddeford. We have the same thing in areas close into us here, Saco and North.
As I've told you, when you bury your head in the sand, your posterior makes a good target.
If you kick good.
Well, but, you know, even when having to confront problems, you get kicked.
Yes. Well, just to get an idea, How do they get in touch with you, Bill, if they are interested to discuss it? Not necessarily go into it, but they are concerned.
Give me a phone call.
What is your phone number?
Our phone number is 967-0738, or they can email me at mwcwjl@roadrunner.com.
Give that phone number to me again, because,
all right.
People out there want to, and slow.
It's a Kennebunkport phone number.
Right.
967-0738.
0738.
And I'll be happy to talk to folks. I look at financial planning as a hobby because I enjoy it so much.
Well, that's good.
And people need help. And you never know what kind of benefit you can be to whomever. And everybody's important.
Well, I think, first of all, they've got to know that they're going to get older and they're going to retire, and they have to plan for it ahead of time.
That is crucial.
And most people are in a position where they can't retire right now because they haven't done the planning or they haven't saved the money. And this is so important for people to understand, that you should get to see somebody who is a certified financial planner, such as yourself.
Right.
And at least talk to them on your situation and what you can do. If you're not doing anything right now, you do something in the future. And that's important.
Exactly. And put together some sort of a plan for yourself. It doesn't have to be formal. Mm-hmm. It just be something that you put in your head. That these are the goals I'm setting for myself. Let me see how I can achieve them.
Well, I know my son told me to go on a diet, so I set up all the different calories I get in as I eat each day. And you can do the same thing.
Oh, yes.
In setting up what it costs you to live each month. You have a rent or a mortgage. You have your food. You have entertainment. You have visiting people and travel. And so you can set down the various aspects of what it will cost you. And if you have money left over, then that's the money you've got to put into something.
Exactly.
To invest.
And so you forego a movie, or you forego going out to dinner, or you forego some of the things that are not absolutely necessary for you to survive.
You're right on target on that, because I think people out there want to know these things. And just give me one more time that phone number, Bill.
Sure. 967-0738.
And you can call him locally here.
Right.
And is there any charge for a local that you call in?
No.
There's no fee to talk to people.
Right. And we don't have a fee until a person becomes a client, and we begin to work with that person to set up a specific plan.
That sounds
for
great.
him.
It
and
really
every client gets a net worth statement, so he's on top of what's happening to him, and it's not just vague stuff. And he can see it in black and white every month. And we send out a personal newsletter that we compose about whatever we want to talk about with our clients. And we have fun.
Well, that's important. And I really feel that you've got a message here that people want to hear about.
Well, I hope so, because that's how I look at myself.
Well, thank you very much, Bill,
pleasure.
for coming here today.
Thank you, Bernard.
And telling us some interesting things. And I hope that you folks out there think about some of the stuff we've talked about. And if there's any interested person there, you'll call Bill directly. His name and his phone numbers will be on the trailer that goes ahead of the film itself here today. And you can give him a call at your leisure. Thanks again for meeting with us.
Well, it's been my pleasure.